Hello, my fellow chatterers and book lovers, and anyone else who's popped in because you're curious about what this is or you have got a bit lost. Welcome everyone, I'm Chatty, this is my channel Chatty the Mad Tatter, and I'm going to be chatting away madly about stats for September because it's stat time of year again. It's been stat time of year, month even, for quite a while, but I'm very excited to finally be making this video because it means that I can finally clear this space here on my windowsill, which is where I keep the books, that I'm going to be filming my next wrap up or stat video, so they're all kind of assembled and ready and I don't have to go fish them out of all the hidden places they've got to. And they've been sat there for a long time, so much so that I really need to put my October books there, and then I can get my November books out because it's now November. So this feels, it has been well overdue. So I'm delighted to be doing it. Not that you needed all of that information, but this is my video. I can share what I like. Waffle is waffling. Hello. Thank you to everyone who, after all of that waffle, is still here. Lovely. So pleased you could join me. If you are a bit of a book nerd and you love some statistics, then this is a video for you. If that is not your vibe, I suggest toddling off and finding a different video. We have many to choose from many booktubers. So go knock yourself out. Welcome back everyone, I'm so pleased that you're still here with me. I've got a nice warm hot drink today. It's very much warming my hands because it is very autumnal, it is chilly, and this feels good. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going through, back in September, I was taking part in the magical readathon. So if you are all interested in my thoughts and processes for choosing those books, please link this video here. I didn't really do a lot of videos around the magical readathon this year because, again, I'm trying to be kinder to myself. I have so many things that I would love to film and love to do, but I don't actually have time to do all of those. So I'm having to be pickier. I'm having to say no to my creativity and just limit myself a little bit. So join in, have the fun, but don't go overboard was the plan for this one, because there are other projects that I'm doing that I feel are more important to me at the moment. But I love the magical readathon. It's created by G. It's like a magical university, and your prompts are to do with courses that you're taking. So I will go through all the books I had for those. What other books I also slipped in that aren't on my TBR, if I actually managed to read my TBR, and then I'm going to go into all of the book stats, tell you like the lengths of what I was reading, the variety of genres, how diverse my reading is, all of those things that I enjoy. And finally, I will be picking my favourite book that I read in the month of September and my least favourite that I read in the month of September. So go grab yourself a brew if you haven't already, and we will crack on with all of this. It is very nice tea. I'm drinking Earl Grey today. I kind of feel I should be I don't think of myself as someone who has lots of caffeine, mainly because I don't drink coffee and I don't think there's as much in tea. But I realise I am drinking a lot of tea, a lot of tea. So Earl Grey apparently has less caffeine, so does Red Bush. But I felt in a calm Earl Grey sort of mood, so that's what I've gone for. Oh, and I nearly forgot to do my little gimmick. So on my long videos, which this is one of, I do not do editing. The camera keeps rolling and we take the chaos as and when it comes. So here we go, here's my little teacup. Clink, 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 clink. One shot, no editing. Quite sure what I did there, but there we go. Right, the magical readathon. My character Piolas is is trying to be a star whisperer. I forgot my calling for a minute then. So these are the subjects he had to study for the Autumn Equinox to gain to the next level of his career. So the first one was an O in the Art of Illusion. And for that we had an image generator, so we got given an emoji, and the emoji that came up for me was a siren. And for this book I chose Henna Wars by Abida Jaygadar. Abida Jaygadar. Then for an O in astrology, no, astronomy, not astrology, astronomy, we were studying the constellation of Cradle, and for that you had to pick a book that was published in your birth month. Doesn't matter on the year, but published in your birth month. And for that, I chose the middle grade, Ember Spark and the Thunder of Dragons by Abby Elphinstone. I think I've been saying Thunder Dragons constantly throughout this. Thunder of Dragons. And then for a Q in astronomy, we were studying the constellation Castle. So a book with a castle on the cover. And for that, I finally, once again, put on my TBR, The Sky on Fire by Jen Lowndes. Then it was a D in astronomy, and that was a dice. And for that, we rolled the dice, and whatever number denoted the number of pages, I got a 1, so I had to read something 100 to 200 pages. And thankfully, Juno Dawson has out a new novella in Her Majesty's Royal Coven, Queen Bee, which I was very excited about. So that fitted perfectly because I was really struggling for a small book otherwise. We then have an O in law. And for that, it was studying the history of the Illyrians, which are most closely connected to a vampire. So read a book with vampires. And I have the YA Crule Illusions by Margie Fuston. We then had Psionics and Divination was Rewind Time. And that was to read a favourite author's debut book. And the author I chose was Jason Reynolds, and his debut novel, not poetry collection, novel, is When I Was the Greatest. We then have Q in Science and Divination, which is the significant reoccurrence. So that was a letter that reappears 4 or more times in the title. And for that, I chose the letter A in Amari and the Despicable Wonders. So that appears 4 times, and it's also just a nice touch that the author's surname also begins with A, because this is written by B.B. Alston. And then finally, I had Introduction to Tarot was the D level in Psionics and Divination. And that was picking a random tarot card and picking an image from it and connecting that to the book. So the image I pulled from the tarot card I picked out, which was the Chariot. It happened to, my pack happened to have some leaves on it. So I chose leaves and went for Green Wild by Parry Thompson. This is The World Behind the Door. So there we go. This was my study. So did Piola's pass? I read The Henna Wars. Well done me. I read Ember Spark. Fantastic. The Sky on Fire. Whoop whoop. Queen Bee. Yes, I did. Crule Illusions. Crule Illusions I read part of. I then wasn't having fun and skim read quite a lot of it. So yeah, I DNF'd Crule Illusions. But thanks to this term, we have got scrolls. So you can, if you've got enough guild reputation points, you can buy a scroll, and there was one on there about DNFs. So it still counts. I still passed my class, but obviously as I'm talking about my stats, I'm very aware that that book is a DNF, not a I read the book. When I Was the Greatest, yes. Amari and the Despicable Wonders, of course I did. And Green Wild, not in September. I have read it, so Piola's has passed the course, but I didn't finish in September. I started it, but I didn't finish, and we were far too far into October by the time I did finish it, that this is an October book now, not a September one. So there we go. Piola's did pass. He did pass, so hooray, he can carry on next year in the Spring Equinox. So what other books do I need to add into my little shelf of what I read in September? Are these ones here. So 2 books that I did mention in my TBR that I was finishing off, they were leftovers from August, was the 4th book in the Pages & Co series, which is The Book Smugglers by Anna James. And big achievement, I finished the non-fiction They, She, He, or He, She, They, How We Talk About Gender and Why It Matters by Skylar Baylor. I started reading this end of April, beginning of May, needed to take a break because I wasn't in the right frame of mind to continue, and then I did finish it in September, and I feel very satisfied for having finished it. And then there was quite a lot of fantasy that I was reading all at one point, and having had a book that I DNF'd, I was feeling a bit slumpy, feeling a little bit full of fantasy, feeling like a bit down. Even though I wasn't expecting to love Crule Illusions, I wasn't expecting to feel so meh about it, and it just kind of brought my joy of fantasy down a bit. So I needed something to kind of spark my reading excitement. I needed a palate cleanser. I needed something, and that something that called to me was A People's History of Heaven. This is a contemporary book, possibly classed as literary fiction, I don't know. But I knew this was going to give me characters I would care about. I knew this was going to give me beautiful writing, and I knew this was going to give me emotion. All of those things I needed to crack the slumpy feelings I was getting, and it did. So I read this one, and it was great. And the final book I have to slot in here is a book that I can't remember if I earned or if I just gifted myself because I felt like it. I received a parcel from Fairy Loot. I had quite a while ago pre-ordered the Fairy Loot special edition versions of the Heartstopper series, and book 4 has finally been published by them. So I hadn't read Heartstopper Volume 4 by Alice Oseman for a while. Like when it first came out, I borrowed it from the library, which is what I have done with Volume 5. As soon as I could get hold of it, I did. But I am collecting the special Fairy Loot editions. So what we have on this one is, on the paperback, we have a yellow spine. And so the yellow spine is here. It's taken all the way around the edge as well, and it's a sort of a metallic goldy yellow. So we've got this lovely shine to it. We've still got the illustration cover we have of the back of Nick and Charlie, where they're having a big cozy wintry cuddle, which is so cute, and lots of gold. And the Heartstopper is also in this yellowy gold. We've got yellow sprayed edges. You have purple with yellow hearts end pages. And my favourite part is underneath the dust jacket, we have purple, and we have Nick and Charlie in gold with them under the umbrella, and Charlie's cuddling one of Nick's dogs because he's feeling quite low in this book. There's a lot in this book. So I was delighted. I just had to pick it up and read it straight away. I was like, yes, I am just going to stop what I'm doing because I love these series. They are my comfort. They are my joy. It makes me feel so happy to just hang out with Nick and Charlie, and it does not take a long time to read. There we go. So that is everything that I read or attempted to read in September. Let's just... Oh no, the teacup! The teacup's fallen overboard. Let me just fish that out. What? Can I find it? No, not easily. Oh, there we go. It's fallen into a pot. Ta-da! There we go. Tiny teacup is okay. Not smashed, in case anyone was worrying about it. Camera angles, you really can't see the books that well. I'm just going to move them along a bit more. But I'm going to move the teacup first because that would make more sense. There we go. That's better. They do need to be the stars of the show, really, don't they? Right, after all that chatting, I definitely need to drink a bit more tea. So we have here 11 books, but one was a DNF. Skim reading doesn't count as proper reading, and I definitely skipped big chunks of that to see if the story was worth going back and reading properly, if it was going to get better, if it was going to get more exciting. Spoiler, it was not. So skim reading was definitely the best plan for me. But so 10 books are what I read in September. Okay, so I'll go through some of the stats now. So one which I kind of mentioned already was that I reread one book, which was Heartstopper Volume 4, and the other 9 were new to me, as was the DNF. So 1 reread, 9 new reads, and 1 DNF. 2 of these books are from the library. That was When I Was the Greatest and Ember Spark, and all the others are from my shelves. In terms of format, I read one graphic novel, which was Heartstopper, one novella, which was Queen Bee, and the other 9 were full-length books. Moving on to book sizes now. I link them to animals, so anything that is 150 to 300 pages is a mouse. Anything from 301 to 400 is a goat. 401 to 500 is a cow. 501 to 700 is an elephant. So I read 3 books that had mouse-sized vibes this month. Graphic novels automatically are mice because there's less text and it's quicker for me to read them. So even if it's got a lot more pages, I will just automatically count it as a mouse. And the others are Queen Bee and Ember Spark. So you'll notice that I referred to my books as having size vibes. It's not specifically to the pages, and I will tell you for why shortly. I have 5 books that are goat size. That's 301 to 400 pages. We have the book Smugglers. We have Amari and the Despicable Wonders, A People's History of Heaven, When I Was the Greatest, and the Henna Wars. Now I'm going to explain a little bit more why. So if you just happen to be looking at things and be like, that does not have 300 to 400 pages, what is she on about? Let me explain. So just looking at some of the pages in the book, the way the typing is, the way it feels, and kind of like how long it kind of took me sort of to read it. Absolutely, there are books that are really long that you can just flip through, and there are books that are a lot shorter that you can take your more time with. But what I noticed about these, so this is Henna Wars, which has 387 pages. But if you have a little look at the text, it's got quite wide spacing in between it. And there are, I did count them, 25 lines of text per page. When I Was the Greatest, if you just kind of have a different look at the print layout between these books, let's see if I can do it like that. So we've got Henna Wars. I don't know which one's left and right because the camera flips it around. But we've got Henna Wars, and then When I Was the Greatest, you can see there's less line spacing between them, and it does seem a little bit closer together. Although When I Was the Greatest has got like a bigger border around the page, When I Was the Greatest does have 28 lines compared to Henna Wars' 25 lines per page. And A People's History of Heaven goes one more. This has got 29 lines per page as opposed to Henna Wars 25. So there we go. Again, you can kind of compare if you can see how the text is different. There we go. That's just a little comparison for you there. All of these books felt the same size to me, so they gave me goat size vibes. Can't put them on. I feel like it's going to be a disaster. Then I have 2 cow-sized books. We have The Sky on Fire. This is very nearly elephant, just wasn't quite long enough to be an elephant, so it's definitely a cow. And They, She, He. If you notice, this book compared to other paperbacks, going for Henna Wars again, is a lot bigger. So again, it has cow-sized vibes. It is, you know, it's definitely wider and taller than the average paperback. And again, I'm going to show you the lines and the text. So if you're looking at the text of Henna Wars compared to the text in They, She, He, it's there's a lot more text in They, She, He. Also, the subject matter is very weighty in this book. So I feel you do need a lot more kind of processing time for it as well. So there we go. 2 cows, 5 goats, and 3 mice. For age ranges, I read 4 adult books: Queen Bee, People's History of Heaven, He, She, They, and The Sky on Fire. 3 YA books: When I Was the Greatest, Heartstopper Volume 4, and The Henna Wars. And 3 middle grade books: Ember Spark, The Book Smugglers, and Amari and the Despicable Wonders. One of the goals I like to try and achieve each month is to have a third of what I'm reading be middle grade, and I just fell short this month. I read 3 out of 10 middle grade books. The other goal I like to reflect on each month is half of what I'm reading by global majority authors. So I have He, She, They, A People's History of Heaven, When I Was the Greatest, the Henna Wars, and Amari and the Despicable Wonders, written by global majority authors, and The Sky on Fire, Queen Bee, Ember Spark, The Book Smugglers, and Heartstopper, written by white Eurocentric authors. So that is 5 out of 10. So yes, I have finally hit that goal of having half of what I'm reading be by global majority authors. In terms of genres, I read 5 fantasy books: The Sky on Fire, Queen Bee, Ember Spark and the Thunder Dragons, Amari and the Despicable Wonders, and the Book Smugglers. 4 contemporary books: Heartstopper Volume 4, The Henna Wars, When I Was the Greatest, and A People's History of Heaven. And 1 non-fiction, He, She, They. With my series, I made progress with 2 series. The Pages and Co series, I read the 4th book, The Book Smugglers, and Her Majesty's Royal Coven series, I read the prequel, Queen Bee. In terms of finished, not finished, I'm up to date, so I haven't finished. I'm up to date with the Amari and the Bureau of Supernatural Investigation series, because I read book 3, The Despicable Wonders. And I started a new series. I suppose I guessed it was going to be a series. Ember Spark and the Thunder Dragons. There is book 2 coming out very soon, which I think is about a phoenix. Looking about how diverse my books are, I don't have a set goal with this one, because I still want to be focusing on the 2 I already got, which is reading middle grades and reading more books by global majority authors. I think that's plenty to be going on, but I do like to reflect it to see kind of where my gaps are. This month, for like one of the first times ever, I have got a load of books that have got LGBTQ plus protagonists, which is thrilling. There's usually like 1 or 2, but I've got 5. So that's The Sky on Fire, He, She, They, A People's History of Heaven, The Henna Wars, and Queen Bee. 6. How can I forget Heartstopper? And Heartstopper. So I've got six books where the protagonist is part of the LGBTQ plus community. I only count it if it's the protagonist or like a main character. In terms of disability representation, I have 1 book where there's a character with a physical disability, that's A People's History of Heaven, and 1 book where there's a character, a main character who's neurodivergent, and that is When I Was the Greatest. 3 books looked at topics of mental health in them. That's He, She, They, A People's History of Heaven, and Heartstopper. I feel the need to point out in They, She, He how we talk about gender and why it matters. It explores eating disorders and also mental health, but also looks at how the trans experience isn't a mental health condition. So I think it's very important to make that differentiation. Transgender people exist, they are who they are, they will have mental health, they are more likely to struggle with mental health concerns as part of society deeming trans people to be other and not normal. So I think it's very important to make that distinction. But yeah, this definitely explores mental health. In it, it's full of lots of other things. But I definitely say there's that's a big one big sort of part of this book that you can see in there. A People's History of Heaven. It's not I can't get my words out. There's not like a specific kind of storyline of it, but it's such a kind of a community on a knife edge. There's 5 girls and also their families and where they've come from and how they all live here, and kind of how life isn't necessarily secure here. They are often at risk of homelessness and things like that. So there is definitely like grief and trauma looked at, not specifically, but the layers of it are definitely there in this book, which is why I'm kind of counting it in that. And Heartstopper Volume 4, this definitely explores mental health journey of Charlie in this book. I read 3 books by Asian authors or authors of Asian heritage. That's He, She, They, A People's History of Heaven and the Henna Wars. And I read 2 books by Black authors, When I Was the Greatest and Amari and the Despicable Wonders. And once again, I haven't read any books by Indigenous authors or Latinx authors or authors of Latinx heritage. I'm very aware, having from doing this, that's kind of where my gaps are. So when I am looking at books or wanting to explore books or choosing books, that is going to be something that's kind of in my mind, that I do want to explore stories from those authors for those experiences. Okay, that is all of the stats now. So we move on to which book was my least favourite. Surprisingly, you may have already guessed, there's a book I stopped talking about because I DNF'd it, so I didn't count it for anything, apart from, as I DNF'd it, it was clearly my least favourite, which is Crule Illusions by Maggie Fuston. This just was not a me book. It's so beautiful. I mean, it's not necessarily my favourite aesthetic, but I can see how it would appeal to a lot of people. So when I unhaul it, hopefully someone's going to love it. Someone who appreciates the story and the aesthetic more than me. It's got red foiling on it. It's got roses on the sprayed edges all the way around. It's a nice hardback colour. It feels really nice in my hand. But the story it contained just wasn't a story that was going to work for me. I didn't feel it was, but I had hopes that maybe it would be fun. It just felt really bland for me. I just could not, it shouldn't be. It's got a circus in it, it's got vampires in it. But I couldn't understand the psyche of the main character. There was something off about some of the side characters. I felt they were trying to be found family, but there was too many, it was too suspicious. There were too many questions. There was a lack of trust. I couldn't find a character I wanted to root for in here. I couldn't quite work out what was going on in the world. I had more questions and it kind of pulled me out of the story. And as the story progressed and kind of continued, I did skim read to kind of find out the plot and eventually what happened. And it just felt meh. It didn't feel exciting at any point for me. But it might do for other people. I think there's probably other people that love it. If you're someone that really enjoys YA fantasy as a genre, you enjoy the kind of the fast pace, you enjoy the kind of more angsty style of things, you enjoy vampires, you enjoy circuses, then maybe this will work for you. But it absolutely didn't work for me. My favourite is so hard because all of the other books I really enjoyed. I had a great fun time with. They gave me different things. That's why I love to read across age ranges, across genres. It just makes me feel happy and I get different things from different books. The books it gave me that's something like extra that and was kind of more the full package of what I needed from that book are the ones that I will talk about. So that was Amari. I love this series. I love the characters. I love the whimsy. I love the plot. It just works on all the levels for me. So yes, Amari, it's one of my favourite, not a great series. So yes, this is of course going to be a favourite book. But equally, I loved, in a completely different way, They, She, He. It's a topic that I really enjoyed getting my teeth into. I really enjoy exploring about gender and how we talk about gender in sort of more modern terms now, rather than sticking to a traditional binary and any other thing that deviates from that as kind of ignoring, hiding it under the carpet and not mentioning it, despite the fact that this has been around for years. It was really a nice mix of memoir plus Skylar Baylor, as well as being an athlete, he's a swimmer. He has gone on to give talks and lectures and educate people about being trans and how to not be transphobic and is breaking down barriers. So there was a lot of really important bits of information that Skylar Baylor like put to the reader really beautifully, and really makes you kind of like dive deep into any kind of like internalized transphobia you might have, and kind of pull it to the surface, make you think about it, make you examine it, and say, you know, that's okay, but the first way you need to do is you need to think about why you think like that, and then you need to kind of like put it out. So it's just so good at kind of doing a deeper dive into lots of different subject areas, and I found it a really thrilling read for all of that stuff. It's definitely going to be one that I reread again and kind of keep coming back to. It was a really good non-fiction book for me. And then two books that I have strong emotions for is A People's History of Heaven and Henna Wars, again for slightly different reasons. Like definitely the YA, the lighter feel to it, the more sort of fast-paced one kind of narrative focus on it really helped me kind of relax and enjoy it, whilst dealing with some difficult topics in here about what it feels like to come out as a lesbian when that is not necessarily something that the people close around you are going to understand, and you can feel very alienated about. Also looking at cultural appropriation. I think that's I feel I've mispronounced that, but it's when you take something from a culture that's not yours and use it, kind of like without that permission, without that kind of sensitivity, and just kind of passing it off as a thing, rather than recognizing that this has got historical significance to people where they have been mocked for their cultural heritage for a long time, and then people, without thinking any thoughts, because we're just used to taking and taking and taking, take that. So I really enjoyed all the themes that were explored in this. I love the characters, I love the relationships in here, particularly the family relationships, and I just had a great time with it. A People's History of Heaven in a different way. The writing is absolutely beautiful. Like, it's just very evocative of everything that's happening at that place. You've got 5 very different girls from 5 very different backgrounds, and how they all relate to each other and how they kind of come through. There was a bit of weaving of kind of parents' stories of where they came from, and then to kind of where they are now and the difficulties that they're facing in this community. And it just all pulled together, and the emotion of it, and how I felt for these characters and this community. It just worked. It just worked for me and gave me exactly what I needed. And I can't separate them into a favourite. These were all favourites for me. 4. So I had a great time, and that's delightful. And I'm not going to choose between my children, so don't make me. There we go. I have 4, and that's fine. Okay, that is the end of the video. That is everything I read and wanted to talk to you about in terms of September. And now I can go and find places for them on my very full shelves, which is going to be a challenge in itself, and then get my October books on here, which I'm very excited to do. So I'm going to go have some fun reorganising. Please let me know, what things when you read do you track? Like, are you just tracking how much you've read, or do you track other things as well? Like, do you track your series? Do you track your genre range? Have you got specific goals you're trying to achieve and get to? What are they? I would love to know, because you know I love a chat. So please get chatty in the comments. If you've enjoyed this, click the little like thumbs up, because that's always nice. And if you like the vibe and haven't already, why not subscribe? That would be lovely. Happy reading, everyone.